The movie begins by drawing us into the lives of a family grappling with economic hardship. We meet the central characters, Ki-taek, the family's head, his wife, Chung-suk, and their children, Ki-woo and Ki-jung. Their existence unfolds in a modest neighborhood, where each day is a struggle to make ends meet. The family's living conditions are a stark reminder of their financial constraints. Their home is cramped and lacks the comforts of wealthier households. Within these walls, each family member contributes to their collective survival through a job that is unglamorous and repetitive, affecting their living conditions. One evening, the family's routine is interrupted by a visit from Min-hyuk, Ki-woo's friend. Min-hyuk gifts them a scholar's rock from his grandfather's collection, a symbol of hoped-for wealth. He also offers Ki-woo a potentially life-changing opportunity to replace him as an English tutor for Da-hae, the daughter of the wealthy Park family, as Min-hyuk is going abroad. Ki-woo, who has a decent grasp of English from his military service and multiple attempts at the university entrance exam, sees this as a chance to improve his family's circumstances. With Ki-jung's skills in design programs, they forge university documents for Ki-woo, confident that the Parks won't scrutinize them closely, especially since Mrs. Park, Choi Yeon-kyo, is perceived as naive. Dressed in his finest clothes and armed with the forged documents, Ki-woo arrives at the fancy Park family residence. He is greeted by the housekeeper, Guk Moon-gwang, and soon meets Mrs. Park. True to expectations, Mrs. Park hardly glances at the paperwork. Trusting Min-hyuk's recommendation, she insists on observing the first tutoring session to ensure Ki-woo is suitable. During the lesson, Ki-woo teaches Da-hae, who is initially shy but warms up to him, especially after a comforting gesture he makes during a difficult exercise. Mrs. Park, satisfied with Ki-woo's demeanor and teaching, decides to hire him, offering a generous salary. This opportunity marks the beginning of the Kim family's intricate and cunning involvement with the wealthy Park family. After his first tutoring session with Da-hae, Ki-woo meets her younger brother, Da-song, who is fascinated with playing as an Indian and is a member of the Scouts. Ki-woo, having been a scout himself, connects with Da-song and listens attentively as Mrs. Park shows him her son's artwork. Seizing the opportunity, Ki-woo praises Da-song's art and suggests that Mrs. Park hire a highly skilled art therapist he knows, named Jessica. In reality, Jessica is none other than Ki-woo's sister, Ki-jung. The next day, Ki-jung arrives for an interview, posing as the art therapist Jessica, having quickly read up on art therapy and psychology online. While Mrs. Park discusses Da-song's art therapy with Ki-jung, Ki-woo continues his lessons with Da-hae, who becomes jealous of his apparent friendship with Jessica. Ki-woo reassures her that he has no romantic interest in Jessica, and the two share a kiss. During her first session with Da-song, Ki-jung impresses Mrs. Park with her teaching skills, making Da-song behave exceptionally well. She also persuasively suggests that Da-song's paintings show signs of trauma, linking it to an incident from his first grade. Convinced of the need for art therapy, Mrs. Park hires Ki-jung at a generous salary. Later, Ki-jung meets the family's patriarch, Park Dong-ik, who offers his chauffeur, Yoon, to drive her home. To maintain the pretense of not living in a poor neighborhood, Ki-jung asks Yoon to drop her off at a train station, claiming she has a meeting. During the ride, she cunningly leaves her panties in the car, setting the stage for their next move. Thanks to their new jobs, the Kim family starts eating better and plans their next steps. Mr. Park discovers the panties in his car and suspects Yoon of inappropriate behavior, perhaps even drug use, as he can't fathom why anyone would leave underwear behind. After Ki-jung's class, Mrs. Park discusses Yoon with her, leading Ki-jung to insinuate that Yoon tried to take her home. This convinces Mrs. Park to discreetly fire Yoon to avoid scandal. Ki-jung recommends a more mature and trustworthy driver, subtly suggesting her own father, Ki-taek. Ki-taek, who has past experience as a chauffeur, impresses Mr. Park during a test drive with his politeness, knowledge of the city without needing GPS, and smooth driving that doesn't spill Mr. Park's drink. Mr. Park hires Ki-taek on the spot, completing the Kim family's infiltration into the Park household. The final phase of the Kim family's plan involves dealing with the housekeeper, Moon-gwang, who has been a long-term employee since the house's previous owners. Ki-woo learns from Da-hae that peaches are banned in the Park household because Moon-gwang is allergic to them. Using this knowledge, Ki-woo and Ki-jung start secretly exposing her to peach fuzz. Moon-gwang's allergic reactions become severe enough to warrant a doctor's visit. Unbeknownst to her, Ki-taek is also at the clinic, participating in the family's scheme. He captures a photo of Moon-gwang in the background, later showing it to Mrs. Park, and falsely claiming he overheard Moon-gwang say she has tuberculosis. When Moon-gwang starts coughing due to the allergies at the house, Ki-taek strategically places ketchup on tissues to mimic blood, heightening Mrs. Park's concern. Embarrassed by the thought of having a sick employee, Mrs. Park discreetly fires Moon-gwang, telling her husband that she quit. Mr. Park becomes worried about the absence of housekeeping and cooking in the home. Ki-taek sees this as an opportunity and suggests a prestigious agency he almost worked for, giving Mr. Park the go-ahead to share this idea with his wife. In reality, this agency is another fabrication by the Kims, with Ki-jung posing as the agency's secretary on a secondary phone number. Eventually, Chung-suk, the Kim family matriarch, is hired as the new housekeeper, completing the family's infiltration. Da-song, the Park's son, notices that the Kims share a similar smell, which they realize comes from their old, cheap apartment. When the Parks leave for a camping trip, the Kims take advantage of the empty house, indulging in the luxuries it offers. Their revelry is interrupted by an unexpected visit from Moon-gwang, who claims she left something in the basement. While the Kim family hides, Chung-suk lets her in. Growing suspicious of Moon-gwang's prolonged stay in the basement, Chung-suk discovers a hidden door behind a cupboard, revealing an underground bunker built by the previous homeowner. In the bunker, Chung-suk finds Moon-gwang's husband, Oh Gyun-sai, who has been secretly living there for years, hiding from loan sharks. Moon-gwang had helped him move into the bunker during the transition between the previous owner and the Parks, who remain unaware of its existence. Moon-gwang had been sneaking food to her husband, which explains Mr. Park's perception of her overeating. Moon-gwang pleads with Chung-suk to allow her husband to continue living in the bunker, even offering to pay for his upkeep. However, Chung-suk refuses and threatens to call the police. In a twist of fate, the Kim family, while spying on the conversation, accidentally reveals their presence by slipping on the stairs, leading to a tense confrontation between the two families. The tension escalates as Moon-gwang, the former housekeeper, gains leverage over the Kim family. She quickly records a video that proves they are related, threatening to expose their deception to the Park family unless the Kims comply with her demands. The Kims are forced to sit in a corner while Moon-gwang and her husband Jun-sai take over the house. Moon-gwang criticizes the Kims for disrespecting the home, contrasting it with the care she and her husband took when using the house during the Park's absence. During Moon-gwang's lecture, the Kims seize an opportunity to attack. Ki-taek grapples with Jun-sai, and Ki-jung uses peaches to incapacitate Moon-gwang, while Ki-woo grabs the phone to delete the incriminating video. Their frantic efforts are halted when the house phone rings. Chung-suk answers and learns that the Parks are returning early due to a storm canceling their camping trip. In a panic, the Kims spring into action. Chung-suk starts cooking. Ki-taek ties up Jun-sai in the basement. Ki-jung hides the trash, and Ki-woo, after taking the unconscious Moon-gwang to the basement, rushes to return Da-hai's diary. The Parks' unexpected return forces Ki-woo to hide under Da-hai's bed and Ki-jung under a table. Moon-gwang tries to escape the basement, but Chung-suk pushes her back, causing her to fall and hit her head. Ki-taek finds Gyun-sai, who has been trying to send a Morse code message to Da-song, the Park's son, in hopes of being rescued. Ki-taek dismisses the idea as ridiculous and secures Gyun-sai before leaving. Upstairs, Mrs. Park shares with Chung-suk a traumatic event from Da-song's past. He once saw a ghost emerging from the basement, who was actually Jun-sai, causing a seizure. Meanwhile, Ki-woo narrowly avoids being discovered by Da-hai. As the Parks decide to sleep on the couch to watch over Da-song camping in the garden, the Kims are forced to remain hidden under the table, overhearing the Parks' conversations and intimate moments. Eventually, the Kims manage to leave the house and return to their neighborhood, only to find it flooded with sewer water. Their apartment is severely damaged, and they salvage what they can before seeking shelter in a local gymnasium that has opened its doors to those who have lost their homes due to the storm. The story continues with Ki-woo clinging to the Scholar's Rock, finding comfort in it as he sleeps in a gymnasium after losing his home. He is disheartened by his father's lack of a plan to resolve the situation they left in the basement. Meanwhile, back in the Park household's bunker, Moon-gwang submits to the injuries she sustained earlier. Her husband, Gyun-sai, desperately tries to send a Morse code message for help using the house lights, but his mental state leads to incoherent messaging, only causing him physical harm. The next day, Mrs. Park organizes a last-minute birthday party for Da-song. Despite their personal turmoil, the Kim family must maintain their composed facades for the event. Chung-suk prepares food, Ki-taek chauffeurs the Parks to gather party supplies, and Ki-woo and Ki-jung attend as important guests, hiding their true emotions. During the party, Mr. Park and Ki-taek dress as Indians for a performance planned for Da-son. Ki-woo, after spending time with Da-hai, heads to the basement with the Scholar's Rock. There, he is attacked by Gyun-sai, who has escaped from the basement. After a struggle, Jun-sai knocks Ki-woo unconscious with the rock and then heads to the garden party, armed with a knife. In a shocking turn of events, Jun-sai stabs Ki-jung at the party. Da-song, witnessing the scene, suffers a seizure, while Da-hai finds Ki-woo and seeks help. Ki-taek rushes to aid his injured daughter, while Chung-suk confronts Jun-sai, eventually killing him with a barbecue skewer. In the chaos, Mr. Park demands Ki-taek to drive him to the hospital for Da-song's sake. Ki-taek, refusing to abandon his family, throws the car keys to Mr. Park. When Mr. Park retrieves the keys, he recoils from Jun-sai's body, covering his nose. Enraged by Mr. Park's apparent disregard for his employees, Ki-taek stabs and kills him before fleeing. Weeks later, Ki-woo recovers from brain surgery but struggles with his mental state. He learns of his sister's death, his father's disappearance, and faces arrest for fraud. He and his mother are put on trial but released on probation due to the traumatic events they endured. Eventually, Ki-woo visits the Park house, now owned by a German family. He discovers Morse code messages being sent from the house's lights. It's his father, Ki-taek, who has been hiding in the bunker all this time. Ki-taek has been surviving by sneaking into the kitchen at night and has sent Morse code messages daily, hoping Ki-woo would see them. Back in their old apartment, Ki-woo writes a letter to his father, vowing to work hard and earn enough money to buy the Park house and reunite with him. The movie concludes with this hopeful yet emotional promise. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.